let's talk about water, specifically drinking water in Europe. Lately, in the last couple weeks, I've read a lot of articles. I've read a lot of questions that people have online about the drinking water in Europe. And specifically, they want to know two things. Number one, is tap water or faucet water in Europe safe? And number two, they want to know, will they be served free tap water when they go out to eat in Europe? So let's talk about it. Now, the first thing I want to discuss is this question about, is the tap water, the faucet water in Europe, is it safe? Now, when I first read that, I have to admit, I thought, what a silly question. I've lived in Europe, traveled throughout Europe since the mid 1990s, and I drink a lot of water. And everywhere we go, I drink water. You got to stay hydrated, right? I've never had a problem. And in fact, when I think about the water in Europe, specifically the water here in Germany, I think about the purest, the cleanest, the most refreshing water I've ever had anywhere. So I thought, well, why would someone have questions about the safety of the drinking water in Europe? So I was like, well, okay, so I know my personal thoughts, but let me look it up. All right, so I found this report called the Environmental Performance Index, or the EPI, I guess. And this is a report produced by a collaboration between Columbia University and Yale University, both in the United States. And they ranked the quality and the cleanliness and the safety of drinking water in many countries around the world. And I was looking at this report, and the top 20 countries of the quality of drinking water in the world, 19 of the top 20 are European countries. And the only country in the top 20 that's not a European country is Japan. And Japan ranked at number 17. And to look at this even closer, the top 6 countries on this report, all European countries, had an almost perfect score for water cleanliness and healthfulness of the water. And just FYI, Germany ranked very high, not quite perfect, but Germany was number 8, which is very good. The United States only ranked number 26, so it didn't rank quite as well. And, in the last, I would say 15 years or so, we've seen plenty of reports about places in the United States that have poor drinking water. I mean, there's Flint, Michigan, there's Jackson, Mississippi, there's the Central Valley of California, Houston, Texas, and many others where the water quality is very poor. So with all this in mind, why would travelers from the United States question the safety of water in Europe? And I have a couple theories why this may be. Number one, most people in the United States, when they travel outside of the country, the first place they go is Mexico. And Mexico is famous for having non-potable water. I mean, the water in Mexico is so bad that we make jokes about it, we write songs about it, there's TV commercials about it, and everybody talks about don't drink the water in Mexico. So it's well known. So I guess if that's the only place you've ever been outside of your home country and you can't drink the water there, then it might get you thinking, well, maybe we're the only place that's safe to drink the water. So that's one reason, I think. The second reason is because I think Europeans, or especially Germans, tend not to drink much tap water, at least the ones I've been around. It seems like they would much prefer go to the store and buy some water like this in a recyclable bottle and drink that. And most of the time, oftentimes, it's going to be carbonated, so it's going to have bubbles in it. And then when they finish, they take it back to the store, get a deposit, and get a new set. So Germans, from my experience, tend not to drink as much tap water as people in the United States did, and I have a couple of, I think, pretty good examples about this. Number one, the first time Betty and I lived in Germany, this was many, many years ago, she had a friend that she hung out with, a German lady. And one morning I went running with this lady's husband. And we met at his house and we went for a nice run, 10, 12 kilometers through through the forest of Bavaria, very nice. And when we got back, we're in the driveway at his house. We're kind of stretching and cooling down. And he looked at me and he goes, Wasser? Kind of like a question. And I was like, ja, bitte. And so he took me around back, took me to his tool shed. And I figured he was going to hand me a bottle of water or a glass of water or something. But the water, he got out the water hose and a brush and started cleaning his running shoes. So, talk about different culture priorities. My priority was water for hydration. His priority was water for clean running shoes. And the other example is just a few years ago, I was a member of a big fitness center here in Germany. And this place was really nice, super modern. I mean, it was one of the best fitness centers I've ever worked out at. Super modern, had great equipment, weightlifting, cardiovascular stuff, total body stuff. It was really nice. But there was not one water fountain in this entire place. And you talk about culture shock. I mean, you can't go to a gym in the United States and not have, 4 or 5 water fountains. There's going to be plenty of places to get water, to fill your water bottle up. This place, you couldn't even fill your water bottle up unless you went into the bathroom and used a sink. And there's only one sink, by the way, for all the men in the place. So that's the only place you could fill your water bottle up. The other thing, you had to buy water from a machine that had to fill water. So that's a difference. I think in the United States, we tend to drink a lot more tap water, especially when we're exercising. And in Germany, that's not the case. All right, so if the water in Europe is safe and healthy to drink, why do so many travelers from the United States have questions about the quality of water in Europe? I mean, it's probably cleaner than the water they're drinking back home. So I think that brings us to our second point, and I think that's probably because what happens when you go to a restaurant. So when you go to a restaurant in the United States, typically you go in, you sit down, and before you even have a chance to look at your menu, they're going to put down, a glass of ice water, right? Nice cold ice water right in front of you before you even had a chance to think about what you want. And that's not the case in Europe. And, why is that? And oftentimes, if you request water in Europe, you ask for it, you're going to have to pay for it. So why is the difference? What's the difference there? So, and I think a lot of that boils down to the standards of practice of the restaurant industry, right? So in the United States, their business model revolves around getting as many people into the restaurant as possible. They want to turn over tables as quickly as possible. So you get in, you get a menu, they give you your water, you order your food, they bring you your food, and before you're even finished eating, they're going to come up with the bill and they're going to say, here's your bill, I'll be your cashier when you're ready, no rush. But there really is kind of a rush, right? Because they want to fill that table as many times as they can throughout the night, right? Whereas in Europe, specifically, here in Germany, restaurants tend to be much smaller. They tend to be more family run. They have a much smaller staff. And if they open for lunch, they're probably going to close between lunch and dinner. And then when they open back up for dinner, they're going to have maybe 1 or maybe 2 sets of people at that table for the whole night, right? So they're not in the process of turning tables. That's just not what they do. So if you go in and you sit down at a table at a restaurant in Germany or throughout Europe, really for the most part, you're going to pretty much be able to sit there for as long as you want. So you might sit there for hours, whereas in the United States, typically you go into a restaurant, you're probably going to be there for an hour or even less than an hour, where in Germany, it's not uncommon to stay there for 2 or 3 hours. And so they don't turn over tables. The table at the restaurant in the United States that might have 4, 5, or 6 groups of people there in one night, that same table in Germany might only have 1 or 2 groups. So for that restaurant in Germany, it's much more important, I think. Everything has to be factored in so they can make a profit. And that includes selling drinks. So they're much less likely to just immediately give you free drinking water in Germany than they are in the United States. Now, selling drinks, of course, is also factors into the profit in the United States, but they have so many people coming in, I don't think they worry about it as much, right? And you think about it, in Germany, throughout Europe, the drinks typically aren't that expensive. I mean, if you order a bottle of water, it's not going to cost you that much. So, and this, I have to admit, when I first came to Europe, this kind of frustrated me too. But now I'm used to it and I kind of like it. And typically when Betty and I go out to eat, I'll order a drink, probably a beer or something, and maybe she'll get a glass of wine, and then we'll get a big bottle of water to share it in between us. And I think that's fine. I don't mind paying, 2 or 3 euros for a bottle of water. They're usually not very expensive. All right, so the economics are different, and I guess selling beverages is much more tied into the profit of the restaurant than it seems to be in the United States. And so recently, just in the last couple weeks, there was a court case in Italy. There was a lady from the United States who had been to Italy, I don't know, a few years ago on a ski vacation. And so she stayed at this all-inclusive hotel restaurant, right? I think she was there for a week. And it was all-inclusive, except it did not cover drinks with her meals. So every evening she would go down to the restaurant for dinner, and she would try to get them to serve her tap water, free water. They refused, they wouldn't do it, so they would give her bottled water, and they charged her every night for a bottle of water. Well, later on, I guess she sued them. She took them to court. She demanded reimbursement, I guess, for pain and suffering. I'm not sure what all, but for several thousand euros she was asking for. Well, that got dismissed. It got thrown out of court. And the judge said that the restaurants have no responsibility, no requirement to serve people free drinking water. So it's not required, so he threw the case out. So that's kind of interesting. But you look at it, so what are the laws and who is required to serve you water? Because in some places it is a requirement to serve free drinking water. And so I started looking this up. Now, in the United Kingdom, first of all, let me say that laws change, rules change, and right now, this is June 2026. So a few months from now, some of these laws may change, they may be totally different. But as of right now, the best I could find, this is what I'm going to tell you. In the United Kingdom, any establishment that serves alcohol, and I think that applies to bars and restaurants, everything like that, probably nightclubs as well, if they serve alcohol, they are legally required to serve you free drinking water upon request, right? So they're not just going to give it to you, but if you ask for it, they are required to serve you free drinking water. That's in the United Kingdom. Now, if you look at the European Union strongly suggests to its member nations that they provide free drinking water to people at restaurants upon request. Now, it's not a law, so each country has the ability to make its own law, but the European Union recommends that. Now, so where is it the law? So on the Iberian Peninsula, Portugal and Spain, restaurants, it is a requirement. Now, they're not just going to bring it to you automatically, but if you request free drinking water, they are required to provide you free drinking water. Now, in France, they are required to serve you. The wording of this seemed kind of funny, but they're required to serve you a carafe of water with every meal ordered. So I don't know if that's like 1 carafe per person, 1 carafe per table, but it said 1 carafe. So you go, and one thing I found oftentimes in France, and I think this is really nice, when you go in and sit down and they bring you your menu or whatever, they'll just automatically bring you a carafe of water and put it on your table. So that's France, that's Spain, that's Portugal. And another country, Hungary, from what I understand, Hungary is also required to serve you free drinking water if you request it. Now, here's the catch. If you don't request it correctly, you might get a bottle of water and you might get charged for it. So you have to specifically ask for, I think in France, you have to specifically ask for a carafe of water. And the other places you have to say, I want some free drinking water. So you might want to learn that in whatever language of the country whatever language the country speaks that you're traveling in, you might want to learn that phrase if free drinking water is important to you. In Germany, of course, we already talked about Italy, and it's not required in Italy. In Germany, it's not required either. Now, I've been with people who've ordered free water, and they've gotten it. Some places won't give it to you, but in Germany, I believe it's called. We would ask for Leitungswasser, and I believe that means tap water, and that's what you need to ask for. If you just ask for Wasser, they're probably going to bring you a bottle of water and charge you for it. So If you want free water, ask for Leitungswasser. And they might say no, because they don't have to give it to you. And another thing, they might charge you for it, even if it's Leitungswasser. They might charge you like to clean the glass or just to bring it to your table or something like that. And it's not going to be a lot of money, but they might charge you a little bit. So, so those are the few countries where it is required by law. You can ask anywhere. You might get it, you might not, but they are not required to serve it to you. All right, so bottom line, the water in Europe is perfectly safe to drink. In fact, it's probably cleaner than the water you have at home, right? But it's just a cultural difference between what they serve in restaurants. So you may not get served free drinking water in Europe when you travel here. And that's just part of the culture. So my advice is to budget and plan for a couple of extra euros per day to pay for drinking water when you go to a restaurant. And that's part of it, right? When you travel, you want to learn the cultures and experience different things. And, you know, getting a bottle of water at a restaurant, that's one of those things, right? So I hope you found this useful. Hope it was helpful for planning your European vacation. And let us know in the comments what you think. And we'll see you in the next one.